Today we're going to be reviewing everything in Fruity Parametric EQ in FL Studio, but this is going to apply to any EQ in any type of digital audio workstation. So starting from the very top, we have the C1, C2, and so on. You can think of this as the piano, and there's also vocabulary labels describing what that range is. So obviously this is the sub bass, bass, low, mid, and so on. And then down here, if you look close enough, you could see the actual frequencies. So the grid is aligned with these numbers. At the start of each of these boxes is that number's frequency. So right here would be 50 hertz, and over here would be 10,000 hertz. On the right side of the plugin, we have this fader right here. This is going to be the master fader for all of the frequencies. This will be the 1, the 2, and so on. The knobs below each of those faders, that's going to control which specific frequency you can affect. But obviously you can do that just by dragging on it as well. These are useful because if you didn't know, you can create an automation clip. And if you did it on here, it'll just allow you to change the band type. And below it is going to control the slope type. So if we turn this down, then it'll be a more sharp slope. When we turn it up, it's going to be a wider slope. The buttons above these knobs turns off that band, so you won't be able to affect it. And these numbers are each called bands. There are presets up here. I wouldn't mess with these too much unless you know exactly what you're doing. If you right click on any one of the bands, then you can change the type. So there's many different types. I'm going to explain a few of them very quickly. So the low pass, that's going to allow exactly what it just says. It's going to allow the low frequencies to pass through, cutting off everything in the higher frequency range. The band pass is going to allow just the band to pass. The high pass is going to be the opposite of the low pass. The band stop is going to remove this band's frequency range. A shelf is just going to reduce any of the frequencies but not completely get rid of that information. So if you have it all the way down, then it's only at a maximum in this plugin going to reduce it -18 decibels. But if you want it to completely cut off, then you need a pass. Peaking is going to be similar to a shelf. It's not going to be a band pass, but it's going to reduce that band's decibel range. And a high shelf is reducing the higher frequencies. The order is going to be the steepness of the band curve. So if we have it set to steep 8, it's going to be very sharp. And if we have it set to gentle 6, it's going to be a more subtle curve. When you're doing cuts versus shelves, the cut could introduce phase problems because you're completely changing the way that the waveform is played out. So just keep that in mind whenever you are affecting anything, especially the lower ranges. And then the key will allow you to specifically target frequencies based on notes. So let's say that anything above C6, which is 1046.5 hertz, you want that reduced above. And let's say, you have a piano playing mainly in that range. You want that information more pronounced than something else. Like let's say this instrument doesn't sound good with them both mixed together. This could be super useful, especially for targeting specific notes too. Like we could set this to a band stop, scroll on it to make it super sharp, and then choose the note that we don't really want to hear that interferes with a note that we want to hear. Boom, there you go. You remove the note, simple as that. Down here you have a few monitor selections that you can choose. This is off. This will monitor the input, and this is the output. I would just leave it to the output, and I don't really use the compare settings because if I wanted to compare something, I would just turn it up, see what it sounded like, even multiple things. And if I don't like that, then I'll just click Control and Z and it'll automatically revert it to the initial state. So I don't really need to use the compare, but you guys can use that if you want. The HQ button allows oversampling, which means that the sample rate is going to be higher, which allows the computer to compute more of the information that the signal is trying to portray. Essentially, it just reduces aliasing, which is defined as the misidentification of a signal frequency, which introduced distortion or error. So it's really overall just improving the signal. Right next to it, we have the linear phase option. This is typically only really used for lower frequencies that are interfering. So let's say you have a kick and a bass that occupy the same frequency range. You could turn this on so that you could reduce the possibility for any type of phase issues. And phase issues is just defined as an overlapping of two frequencies that degrade the quality of the sound. So phase cancellation is when two identical sound waves are slightly out of sync. They can interfere with each other, and then that will introduce some frequencies to be canceled and reduced. So to truly understand phase issues, you just have to see the actual image of how two lower frequencies specifically interfere with each other, and that'll give you more of a deeper understanding versus me just telling you about it. Back up to the bands. To control the knob down here that I was describing before, you could just scroll and that will do the same thing. And up here you could change the actual shape of the slope itself. So not just the size of the slope, but the shape of it. So if you want more of a box, then you can scroll down on this and you'll see the 4 dots. Typically it's only set at 1 dot, or you can make it more smooth. Now when we go to the options, we have a few more settings that I would focus on. So this again is for the compare setting. I wouldn't really mess with this too much. The minimum phase modulation speed can attenuate any type of crackling if you have the linear phase turned on, not something that's super important. The linear phase mod speed, it uses more of your CPU, but both of these basically just allow faster parameter changes without causing phase problems. Now at the visualization, you have the phase rotation, and this will allow you to see if you need to adjust the overall phase of a bass frequency you're layering with another bass frequency. And if you want a more detailed explanation, I would just go to the FL Studio website, imageline.com, and you'll be able to read everything you need to know about this as well. But it's just a little bit easier to watch a video of somebody explaining it than reading basically a whole book. The mid for the monitor input, that's the mono part of the EQ, and the side is the stereo part. And then the left and right is just panning both sides. We're gonna stay with mid. Patcher has a preset in it with a mid side EQ, which allows you to put that one effect on a single instrument or multiple, and you can affect the stereo and the mid part of the instrument. So that's another very useful thing. Just look for Patcher, then go to presets and mid-side EQ. Histogram right here, this is going to allow you to see the frequencies. As you can see right there, we don't see any of the frequencies. We enable this, we could see them. The range is how low the frequencies can go before you can't see them. So if we set the range to -60 decibels, we're not going to be able to see as much of the frequency information as you might like. So since those higher notes aren't really playing that loudly, you can't really see them right there. So I would turn this to -120 just because then I can see pretty much everything that's going on with the analysis of the frequencies. The pivot slope is set to 4.5 decibels. If we set it to 0, this is going to be an actual representation of where the frequencies would align with each other. So at 0, and then 4.5. It evens out more of the frequencies so that you could see them more. Frequency precision. Now, if we have it at low, you're going to see that all of these frequencies are going to be more smoothed out. And if you want to edit them more precisely, let's say that there's a specific frequency that you don't want, then you should set this to highest. So then you'll know pretty much the exact frequency that you want to affect. So I would probably keep that at highest just so that you know exactly what is going on. Time smoothing affects how fast those frequencies are going to disappear from the equalization. So if we have it set the fastest, it's going to be more precise with the timing of it. And if we have it set to slowest, it's going to appear like the frequencies are there when they're not. The heat map, I find this incredibly useful too. This is going to show you the intensity of the frequencies. So we can see how strong those bass frequencies are, regardless of the pivot slope, which averages out those frequencies together. So even if this was set to 6 decibels, and they all appear to be the same level, we could still tell with the heat map enabled that this is the strongest part of this part of the mix. We turn on the enhanced frequency. This will thin the lines more so that you know exactly where those frequencies are that are the most concentrated part of the sample. And high precision is the same concept. It just doesn't make the lines thinner. And then heat map position will just showcase where the intensity of the frequencies are, either at the top or the bottom of the EQ. It's just so that it doesn't clutter up the visualization of it too much. So alongside Fruity Parametric EQ, there's also this on the mixer too, which is a simplified version of the same thing that we just reviewed. This will affect all of the plugins that you've added. And then we have the regular EQ. This is the same exact concept, except it's not as visually representative of the frequencies, but these are the band knobs, so you can control which bands you want to affect, and you can kind of see down here what you're doing. So same concept, just a little bit less CPU intensive. And this is just good for somebody that wants a more retro vibe, but honestly does the same exact thing. I just like the visualization of the EQ2 in FL Studio. So there you go. That's everything you need to know about EQ in FL Studio and essentially any type of digital audio workstation. Make sure you drop a like and follow for more.